Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, April 11th Planning Commission meeting for the City of South Haven. First up. Oh. What? Yes. Test. First up, Travis, would you call the roll?
Velma Cunningham.
Here.
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here.
Suzanne Loafman.
Here.
Michael Neese.
Here.
Rosalie Placati. Amanda Sukup.
Here.
Janice Varney.
Here.
Tim Stegman.
Here. Okay. Next, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next up, approval of the minutes of the March 7th meeting.
I move approval of the minutes of the March 7 meeting.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the March 7th meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next up, interested citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. Is there anybody here that wants to speak on anything that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business.
Tim.
What?
That's me. I need to.
Yeah, we'll introduce it and then you
gotcha.
can do that. So we have under new business item 6, which is 610 Phoenix Street, special land use request, public hearing. Okay,
No.
now you can.
As a part owner of the property, I will not participate in this discussion. Or vote.
Okay. She said as part owner of the property, she's going to recuse herself for this discussion. David.
Yeah, the Building Services Office received an application for a special land use permit for the property at 610 Phoenix Street. Applicant NL and JM Holdings are requesting to allow a dwelling unit above their permitted use at that property. The property is currently zoned B2, and the zoning ordinance B2 allows all the uses in the B1 zoning district. In the B1 zoning district, dwelling units above permitted uses are allowed in the B1 district by special land use as defined in section 60116. So like others that we've heard in the previous year, I think just recently 420 Phoenix Street, we approved a special land use for allowing dwelling units above their retail business in the CBD. So this falls in line with that.
How do you guys want to do this one? You want to hold the public hearing on it now?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that? Do you want me to make a motion to open up the public hearing for it?
Yep, unless you want to talk about the project first.
I do not. I do not. I like the project, but I don't think. I'll make a motion then to open the public hearing.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to open the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Anybody like to speak about this project?
Hi, I'm Jay Marcoux. I'm representing NL and JM Holdings. 610, that was the old Biddy Murphy building there, and we'd like to turn that into a dwelling upstairs. Pretty much summed it up. Just here to represent the property and ourselves, and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
All right, if the board has any
Questions?
questions, I can bring you up after
Yep.
we close the public hearing, okay? Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, public hearing's closed. Now, you guys have any other questions for Mr. Marcoux?
I have one question. Is the parking lot included in that, Jay? I mean, where does your parking lot for that building?
We share the parking lot with the church across, or right, right
Okay,
next to it.
so
So we have
it's
half the
approx-
parking
half of
lot.
the parking
Yes.
lot. And that will be sufficient?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
there's 8 spots there,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's wonderful to see renovation of those upstairs rooms of the commercial buildings. I appreciate that.
And I just want to point out in section 601-16 that for the dwelling unit, the first unit does not require parking, off-street parking, but any additional unit would require 1 space per how the ordinance reads.
And would that also include commercial for the downstairs?
The commercial is already taken into consideration. We're not looking at that. We're only looking at the
Okay.
dwelling unit above.
Okay.
The plan, David, is for, as I see it here, is just for 1 unit, correct?
That is correct, yes, 1 unit.
I see in the staff recommendation, it says, conditions imposed by the planning commission is deemed necessary. Does anybody see any additional conditions needed?
I can't necessarily see one. We've got the parking. It's the 1 bedroom. Those are the big things that I would want to see taken care of. And it's consistent with some of the things we desired with second floor dwellings. I don't see any problems or feel like I have to tie anything to it.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit for 610 Phoenix Street.
I support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next up, agenda item number 7, site plan review for 1310 Kalamazoo Street parking and loading, unloading area.
Okay. Building Services Office received a site plan review application for new parking and loading, unloading area for this property. Recently, the property came under new ownership. They've been doing some demolition and renovation work. They plan on putting 6 tenants into the property. In addition to those plans that are already underway, they're adding some parking in the front east side of the building adjacent to Kalamazoo Street, and then also drive to the south and unloading and loading area to the rear of the building. With staff's findings, they're adding, I believe, approximately 13 more spaces to the existing 40 spaces to the north of the property. There is other space available in the future to add more parking if that is necessary, depending on what tenants are coming into the building and what parking standards that we have to follow based on those uses. Loading area, everything seems to meet those requirements dimensional-wise. There is some easement called out on the site plans to the west of the building to, with the properties to the west, there's 2 parcels there. One significantly vacant, but housing storage units, I believe. Any other properties are further to the west.
Is HTS here?
Yes.
Would you like to speak about your project?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jeff Harwood. I'm the architect working with HTS. And we did have a couple of changes that were asked of us for the site plan. Most notably from the engineering department. So I spoke with Mr. Dopp and went through his list here and added the items that he requested be done onto our site plan. And the other second part being the street department, where the new curb cut street, since it's one way, we brought it from 24 feet down to 20 feet like he asked that we do.
Have you seen this, David?
the plans, the engineering plans or revisions, I have not seen those revisions, I don't believe. I did receive easement language yesterday afternoon, which we shared with the legal counsel, just to get an idea of what that easement entails to the west of the building, which it does look like it has language that it's used for ingress, egress, and for utilities.
And I just finished up the drawings today, so I'll make
Okay.
sure you get that. So,
That's the answer.
yeah. So
I
it is
will,
all
I
done,
will
and
get to
have
see
some-
them shortly, hopefully.
Yes, I have 3 stamp sets for you if you'd like them, but I could send you a digital copy.
That would be great.
But yeah, we're willing to do whatever we need to do. I think we have addressed everything that was asked for us. I know this is Mr. Rogers here. Do you want to come up and? I know he's very excited to get things underway.
Hi, I'm Will Rogers from HTS, and we are excited to be here. We saw the building, back in November, and we pretty much bought it within about a week on the spot, and we're putting a brand new roof on it. We'll have 6 units there with each will have their own overhead door, and we'll have a nice parking lot. We'll have it looking real nice real soon on the outside as well.
Okay.
And my wife and I are moving here May 15th.
All right.
Excellent.
We're excited to be here.
Anybody have any questions for the developer?
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
I just have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question about the parking. Is it going to be in the front? I heard the side, the north side would be extended as needed, and then
Yes,
the
ma'am.
dock would be in the
We-
back.
We do have some parking in the front.
Okay.
That's shown.
And that's what you changed. I wasn't here last month, sorry. So is that what was changed?
Yeah,
from
there's
24 to
parking
20?
proposed. There's 2 ingress egress to the north of the property to the existing parking. They're proposing a drive in front of the building with parking in front of the building on the west side between the front of the building and Kalamazoo. And then a new egress where the loading and unloading, where they'll circle out south of the building between the water tower and the existing structure.
Because I drove there today, and I was just trying to envision, that water tower is so close. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out, no, I don't know.
So here is, that's the parking there. So that's the water shower area
Yeah.
there. Sorry. See it. So that is the new parking there.
Okay.
Green space there.
And how much screen space is that still? Is that 5 feet?
That is.
I believe there's 20 feet,
20
which is
feet. Perfect.
required
You
in
have a
the
big
zoning
one.
ordinance.
I did see that, gotcha. Okay, I just was, when I went through it, I was not clear. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And then the staff will work on the landscape plan in that green area, the 20 feet there that the zoning ordinance calls out. So, but there'll be minor, maybe shrub and screening varieties
Uh-huh.
and things that we'll work on, so.
Yeah,
But those are just contingent items.
And we are going to have, we're having boring tests done, because we do have a couple leach basins in there, and
Okay.
we know the soil will handle it, but we'll have that available for you as well.
David, I also read in that report that if sidewalks are needed, there needs to be enough space for sidewalks. Is that green space then?
I think that would actually be in the right of way,
It's right,
Okay.
I'll show you.
just outside.
So it is that with the new curb cut, matches the other curb cut, so you can see here where if there is a sidewalk, they would just run along that way. So
Okay.
That way, the driveway's ready for it.
Yep.
If
Thanks.
it does need to go. You're welcome.
Yeah, and the engineering made comments about the sidewalk. I believe I mentioned that in my staff report also, that it does call out sidewalks in the ordinance. It would be between the new egress that's proposed and the already existing southern ingress egress of the existing parking area. Keep in mind that sidewalk is just going to be for that property. There's no other sidewalks in the area, but the ordinance does call that out.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you see staff's recommendation, and obviously there's some plans that haven't been reviewed by David, so your motion will need to improve or include some contingency language.
And I think the recommendation on the staff report includes that contingent language.
Yes. Don't everybody jump at once.
I'm looking for the language here.
It's under staff recommendation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move approval of the site plan for the parking lot at 1310 Kalamazoo Street, providing staff concurs with all of the corrections and deficiencies noted in the engineering report dated April 11th of 2019.
Second.
Been moved and supported. Any other discussion? David, is that motion sufficient?
You might want to include that the southern drive, it encroaches on city property, so that will also be contingent on a license agreement
License
between
agreement.
Shawsa and city council,
Include that.
or Shawsa, city council, and the property owner.
And that.
Which,
So you're amending your original motion. Travis, did you catch that?
That's not an amendment to the motion. Since the motion hasn't been seconded, it doesn't need
No,
to be
no,
amended.
it was
I
seconded.
seconded it.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
seconded.
so you need to amend it.
And I'll
Are you-
second the
he's
amendment.
supporting the amendment.
I
We
would-
just have to make sure Travis has
Okay.
a clean hand on this.
Include a statement that the motion also includes an agreement with the city.
Yeah, so I've got
License agreement.
what was written into the staff report, so I'm just noting the amended motion to include exactly the language in here, so.
Very good. Is everybody clear?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Any other discussion? All in favor of the amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Very good. We're moving along now. Item 8, preliminary site plan review for 260 Dykeman Avenue for the Michigan Maritime Museum property. David, will you speak first? And then
Yep.
we'll invite the developer and museum up to speak.
okay, Building Services Office received a preliminary site plan review application or site plan review application. With the information that was received, this is a very preliminary site plan review for Planning Commission and staff. The applicant, Patty Montgomery Reinhardt, submitted the preliminary review for the Michigan Maritime Museum property located at 260 Dykeman Avenue. The proposed project will transform the Michigan Maritime Museum into an area with capabilities to offer educational and research through the acquisition and preservation of the historic Jensen property, with the ability to provide year-round museum campus events and generate economic benefits for the city of South Haven. I believe part of this project would be a demolition of the current Michigan Maritime Museum and then a rebuild with upgrades to the surrounding campus and the Jensen property, including dock upgrades and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, I see the architect is unveiling a whole bunch of material he's going to show us, and by the looks of it, we could have got 2 new sails for the Friends Goodwill with the amount of money that this probably cost.
We'll put this off to the side.
That's probably a good spot, because I think the home audience can see it. I think
Okay,
the only people that are suffer be the ones behind you,
excellent.
but they can turn around and maybe see it from the screen.
Very good. Can you guys see okay? Is this in the way?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Greg Wycamp with Edgewater Resources. We're working with the Michigan Maritime Museum. Full disclosure, we're also working with the city of South Haven on the All Seasons property. Also working with the South Haven Yacht Club looking at their property. So we've been working on the whole Maritime Heritage District for several years, and I'm very excited to present this to you. So I guess the first thing is I can just dive in and give you a quick overview. Are there any questions before we start, or shall I just give a quick introduction?
No, I think you should raise the mic a little bit, though. That way the
Okay.
home audience
Oh, very good.
can catch it.
Shall I just give a quick introduction then? Very good. All right, so this photo that you see before you is an existing photo. This is what's here today. So you'll see the existing Maritime Museum building here, Captain Lou's over here, and then you see the Jensen structures. There's a small boat club structure out here, the Padnos boat shed, and then the other historic buildings that are here. The Maritime Museum property currently is this area and comes back up river, or excuse me, downriver towards All Seasons. And as you can see, there's a lot of asphalt. There's a lot of kind of historic things from the Jensen properties that are there. The Maritime Museum in the city entered into a new lease in December. I think that probably came through many of you, or many of you have seen that. And the Maritime Museum is also going to, has entered into an agreement to acquire the Jensen properties. And so what we're hoping to do is to take what's there and actually upgrade all this to a more organized, beautiful waterfront campus for the Maritime Museum. And so what you're seeing here is a series of really transformation of all that asphalt into a more welcoming public waterfront space. What you see here is the area downstream is mostly remains intact. There's some landscape improvements and some waterway improvements along the water's edge. There's a new structure here, a significantly improved two-story structure that replaces the existing museum building itself. These structures and the Padnos structure remain the same, although we've relocated the small building over here. The two historic Jensen structures are proposed to remain, the sheds. We love those. What a great character. That's one of the things that we heard when we worked through the visioning sessions with the community, both for All Seasons and actually before that, the first project we worked on in this area was a conversation about the character of the district. And there's really something about the scale, that kind of historic boat shed maritime feel. So we're going to preserve those structures there. And then we're proposing a new building we call the Lookout Building, which if you actually go to the Maritime Museum, there's a historic life-saving structure that is the inspiration for that particular building that used to be located just downriver a little bit. There's a couple of boat sheds there. Been working with the Harbor Commission on looking at a reconfiguration of the way the slips work. There are currently about 32 slips, part of the Jensen Private Marina. Those will go away and be replaced with broadside mooring here, and we're working on the configuration of some slips out here so that the next time there's the Tall Ship Festival, we have more room for ships like the Draken and other historic vessels to come in here. And again, this is all about, really preserving and telling the story of our maritime history. So that's a quick overview. Michelle, the architect, is here. She can talk in great detail about the buildings. In terms of variances, the buildings, at least in our interpretation, seem to comply with all the setbacks and everything else. I don't think we've created any issues about heights and variances and things like that. We're very, I think, sympathetic to the notion of the scale and character of the waterfront harbor. So that's that quick overview. And then we have a series of drawings here that I can go into technical detail on some different things if you'd like to. But I guess with that, I'll probably stop with this one and just see where the questions are, because I can go through this all night long, and I will not do that to you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody have any questions?
I do. Could you give us some idea of the planned uses of each of the structures?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll just start on the Jensen side. The historic Jensen structures, will, as we said, they're going to stay the same. We may raise them. There's some floodplain issues there. We want them to be preserved, but if anything, they would come up a little bit. The idea is to reuse those, keep them much looking and feeling the same way, but obviously there's some improvements that have to be made. Those would be exhibits and storage, and so you'd be able to go into those structures. We are proposing to work on the facades of those so that when you're in the green space here in the middle, you'll be able to look through and see the waterway. We want to bring the water to all parts of the campus. So that would be a small boat exhibit, for example. The green spaces are meant to be usable community spaces. You might have a wedding event out there. You might have an educational event. The Lookout Point building has a small kitchen in it. The idea that there's food service out there and restrooms. One of the things when the Friends Goodwill is trying to get everybody corralled in out on the boat is where's the bathroom? We want that as close as possible. That's also a community space. So the idea that there'd be space on the upper level for meetings like this. You could have a Harbor Commission meeting there, for example. The Padnos boat shed doesn't change. It's a workshop that is there. These structures are the same. They don't change at all. The main building here, of course, is a greatly improved museum. All of the museum functions that you have there today are reproduced here with more space. There's also an event-capable space that's really multi-purpose, everything from education facilities, traveling exhibits, to other, meals, events, weddings, those sorts of things. There you go. Sorry.
Anybody else?
I guess I do with the parking
Sure.
situation. It's already tight as
Mhm.
is. And if you have all of these in a wedding, for example, would you have overflow
Sure.
in mind somewhere?
Certainly. So this is one of those classic build the church for Easter Sunday kind of scenarios. We have a situation, we have all the different uses. One of the things that the way this facility is intended to work is you're going to have uses spread out throughout the day. So the traditional museum uses are really sort of a daytime activity. The events are more of a nighttime activity. There's really no way, of course, we could provide, if we simply laid out all the parking requirements for every single thing all at once, there's no possible way to do that here. The approach that we think is really appropriate is to think about this as sort of part of the community overall downtown. We recognize all great, successful waterfront communities have parking issues in the summertime. The way we think to solve that is with a shuttling system, so you have on-site parking, you handle the accessible issues, and then you have you build into things like for an event, you build in a requirement that part of the event cost is paying for the shuttle. You're going to have to shuttle parking in. So we're going to work with the community as part of, I think, an overall citywide strategy to do that. Also talking about using the Lindy Lou to bring people in by boat, for example. What a cool experience. One of the ways people find the Maritime Museum more than anything is by Googling boat ride South Haven. And one of the ways I think you really get people to pull off the highway and come into South Haven is to get a boat ride. So I think if you look in the requirements, there is a requirement about water-based businesses downstream of Dykeman technically don't have a parking requirement. Whether that applies to this is up to you and council, of course. I think I would argue that the shuttling system is going to be something that is going to be the right answer for many of the parking issues downtown, because if we tried to build out parking for everything, we'd probably lose the character that makes downtown so successful. So I think there's opportunities with where the All Seasons Mango we've proposed, talking about an acquisition of that there would be more boat storage over here. And similar, if you go to Eldine's up in Holland in the summertime, they use their boat storage buildings as indoor parking in the summertime. So that might be another opportunity down the road, again, as a community partnership as to, how these things might work. So there's no great answer of exactly they're going to park here, but I think certainly we're going to contribute to the community-wide solution.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just to dovetail onto that, David, do we have adequate wording in our ordinance that allows you to take all of this nice, pretty stuff that he's talking about?
Yeah, we definitely want to sit down with the stakeholders involved and talk about a few specifics of the project. Just to address the riverfront parking, there is parking definitions for the riverfront parking where it says no parking shall be required to be provided on site for a water-based business downstream of the Dykeman Avenue Bridge over the Black River. So there is that language that is available in the ordinance that addresses the parking requirements here. But there are other uses on site that we're going to have to address as we move forward.
So what you're saying is the water-based business of the museum would be fine, but how big of an event space for a wedding did you say? Maybe 100, 200 guests?
I think it's the number, Michelle? 200. I think
So a 200 guest event center is probably not part of a water-based.
Right, and that's why I put examples of many different parking scenarios and definition standards from our ordinance in the staff report. There's going to be many things that we're going to have to look at with the property owners and stakeholders involved.
Yeah, I would also hope part of that discussion with the stakeholders, if there's public monies involved, I'm not real comfortable with a publicly funded structure competing with private banquet halls for weddings and whatever, so making sure that we protect our existing businesses would be important.
I think this is still considered a private funds. The city's not contributing to the construction project.
As I prefaced it, if there's no city monies involved, no public monies involved, then that's fine.
No, other than the lease, and I mean, we're not charging much for the lease because look at what they provide. That's just like the art center and the other facilities that we have, and we've even put together ways to help with alcohol and things like that to make that work. So Not that I'm aware of, other than maybe some in-kind type stuff.
Well, I think
That'll
it's a
allow.
valid point that this design is meant to increase traffic,
Mhm.
and so therefore the parking becomes even a larger concern. So, good point. Anything else?
Yeah, this may be a silly question, and you can help me with this.
Okay.
The building that you call Lookout Point Building and dock that goes straight out to the river. In my boating days of years ago, that was a bit of a bottleneck anyway. Is that going to create, Tim, as a boater, do you think that's going to create?
I was actually going to bring that up because, as you know, prior to being Planning Commission Chair, I was Harbor Commission Chair, and we saw the preliminary drawings of this quite a while ago. And that was a concern raised, was that particular dock and where the harbor line was. And your concern, as you know from boating, that's a choke point. There's a sandbar in there too. And I see it's still persisting on the drawing, so that to me tells me they would like to go ahead with it. But I know the Harbor Commission's going to have to look at this again. And I don't know if the Corps is getting involved with this.
Give you a quick update on that. So we did meet with Harbor Commission. They raised the same concerns. We've also talked to the Corps of Engineers. We are going to be proposing some revisions to that to make it narrower and move it over and do some of those things to respond to that. So we certainly would like to have it. We think it's a value to the district to bring in the kind of the boats we want to see. It would not be a seasonal use, so there'd not be permanently boats parked out there all the time. But certainly we'll be proposing some revisions and coming back to talk about those. So it will be changing. So.
That'd be the one if we had the board up with our stickers. I'd put my sticker on that one as a point of contention. One question I did have that I saw there were no dwelling units in this proposal, and I was just curious because I know a lot of times the museum's looking for a place for some of the interns that are hired to stay, and I was just curious why that may have not been considered for this. Well, and I say this because when we were talking about short-term rentals, a couple of folks were in the audience, and when they spoke, they said, we can't find any cheaper lodging for these type of workers in our town, and it would seem if we're remodeling, now might be the time to add that bunk room or something like that. So.
Sure.
Not a big deal. I was just curious as to why maybe that wasn't included.
It was a board discussion, and the board didn't choose to go that way.
Okay.
Where do you draw the line? If you look at really what nonprofit employees make, whether they're working on the boat or in a gift store or whatever their position is, it's something that we can't provide housing for, so we decided to go that route.
Okay.
Hoping we can generate more revenue so that we can maybe raise those wages.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else?
The campus is currently a closed campus. As you expand this, will it continue to be a closed campus?
Yeah, so certainly it needs to be controlled. It's a public space, but it does need to be controlled because of the artifacts. One of the things we are doing, I didn't mention, is currently the way the existing city docks, this whole city dock area here is actually integrated into that access point, and that creates some strange things where the people visiting the museum might walk out on the boat into the private docks and think they're in the museum and they're not. We're actually proposing to separate that, which has been really quite well received from those boaters. So there'd be a new boardwalk that goes by here. So all of that would be separated. The museum does need to control it, but the idea is that once we have a better understanding of what's museum and what's not museum, that'll be an easier thing for the community to understand and how and when that's accessible and available to them. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Nice to meet you. There it is. We'll be back.
All right.
Appreciate your feedback and input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item 9, the fish cleaning station site plan review. Is Kate here for that? Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Well, as the harbor master, we have
Would you
been
give us
looking
your name and
Sure,
address?
Kate Hosier. I'll give my work address, 539 Phoenix Street.
You're not going to give us your home address and your phone number, did you?
Sure. Well, as you may know, we have had a fish cleaning station at the Black River Park that is not meeting the needs of our local fishermen and is in poor shape. So we have secured a grant from the Great Lakes Fishery Trust and have been working on a plan for the new fish cleaning station. It's in your packet. It does show that it will be in a new location south of the current one, so it'll be right on the point, and would have 2 large tables and 2 grinders. And what kind of sets this apart is that you do not have to be inside the park to access the fish cleaning station, and it's going to have ADA access, not only in the tables on the inside, but also the drive up on the outside to make it easier for those with limited mobility to access it. So we're very excited about this fish cleaning station. We hope that we have your site plan approval because I'd like to pull the building permit tomorrow. So.
It's much needed. All the other lake towns have one of these, and that's much newer than ours. So, any questions for Kate or David?
I know they've been working on this for a really long time.
Yes.
And have gone through a lot. Projects probably a little larger than we thought, but there's so many projects going around right now. You know, it's getting tough to find people to put stuff together, but I think it's well needed and funded well too.
When was the last time we dredged the harbor?
I believe the last time it was dredged is in 2013. There was some dredging done.
Okay.
Of course, we
So
had our
2013 is when this project originally came up.
yes,
So it's been that long.
6 years.
And we're
ago,
going to
yes.
dredge again, and we're going to do the project.
Yeah. Okay. Seeing no questions, entertain a motion.
So we're looking at a motion just to approve the site plan.
Approve the plan submitted for review. Yep. Approve the
Okay.
site plan.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the fish cleaning station site plan as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now, here we go, item 10. Marijuana discussion, zoning ordinance amendments. Who are we starting with, David or Nick, or probably David? Where do you want to go with this, David?
Yeah, I can start off. As we left off the last meeting, it was requested to create some new maps with the buffering areas. We have done that. There were some overlay areas also that were requested. We have done that, and those maps are here to be presented to you in the agenda packet.
Hey, let me
Yeah, go
have
ahead.
you pause for a second, and our AV guy in the back, maybe he can start throwing the maps up on the big screen. Are we ready to do that, or? Okay.
That was pretty funny.
Heard you, Jared.
He is awake.
He is awake. But I believe from the maps that were requested, I think the items that we were going to be discussing were more of the buffering and screening criteria at this meeting and some other specifics. Last meeting, we discussed more of the uses and where those uses would be allowed based on where the zoning designations are in the city.
Page 103. There we go. So the first map we're going to look at is medical marijuana, 200-foot and 300-foot buffers from school facilities, religious institutions, child care facilities, parks, and beaches. Now, who was it that requested this at the last meeting?
I believe that it came from the audience, and then I supported it.
Okay. So if you supported it, this map, is it agreeable?
If you're asking me, yes.
Okay. just wanted to make sure they drew up what you had intended. Anybody have any comments on this map?
I did want to make sure I knew probably that must be considered a I-1B. There is a large, facility there. It looks like that buffer.
What part of the city are you in?
What was that?
You said I-1B. What part of the city?
Oh, that would be on the south side there, Lovejoy, Kalamazoo area. Pink, Chartreuse.
Did you say I-1B or R-1B?
I-1B. Yep, right there. Yep. So I just want to make sure in that area, we do have a building there in that corner. That's not going to impose on that building, right? It's an appropriate space, I would think.
Yeah, that's a separate parcel, so none of the buffers hit the.
Okay. Well, I know the I-1B is, but I guess maybe the I-1, there is a building there that I know has been potentially proposed in the past to house a facility. And, it appears to be, if that's what you want, an appropriate facility in an appropriate area. And I just wanted to make sure that that buffer zone doesn't overlay that building at all. That was just kind of the question. When you start looking at where something could be and how the buffers relate, that just helps me have a good understanding.
I do have a question.
Yes.
This is my first one. Are we saying that this I-1B would be a spot for one of the facilities? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, as we discussed last meeting, this would be like a growing or provisioning center.
Okay, so that's the 200 and 300 foot buffer, and then let's go to the next page, 104. And this is the medical marijuana 600 foot with the same criteria. Now, who asked for the 600 foot? I'd have to go back to the minutes and look. I just figure one of you would.
I think we did this one in part because it was the Planning Commission's 2017 recommendation had a 600-foot buffer around these uses.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that I read also. I believe it was in the city council meeting minutes from Planning Commission discussion.
So that really knocks out a lot of area, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Part of the buffering language, I mean, that's something we'd have to come down to. Is it a buffer from property lines or is it a buffer from structures? I mean, those are all specifics that would need to be discussed moving forward with these, the buffering and the radiuses that we're seeing here.
And these are done from property lines. It's much, I think, my understanding is much easier for Ryan to do that, Ryan Bosher, who makes these maps, than to try to go building to
Right, and that's normally the language that you'll find in your zoning ordinances also, that there are distances from property line to property line.
Any other immediate comments on the 600 foot map? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to 105. This is the medical marijuana 1,000 foot. Any comments on this one?
Certainly wipes out a lot of other decisions that have to be made.
Okay. No comments? All right, we'll move to 106, medical marijuana growers. You want to say anything about this one, David?
Yeah, these are just the maps that were requested from our revisions and discussion from last meeting, where we took out certain zoning districts for for each particular use in the medical and recreational marijuana.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go through each of these on down, and if you have anything, just tell me you wanna talk about it. So 106, page 106, medical marijuana growers. Anybody?
I just have a question. So are you saying that we would like zone each particular stage of this differently? Like the growers and the processors and the transporters, they would all be zoned differently? Is
Yeah,
that-
from what we discussed the last
Is that
meeting, that's what we were coming up with, was what use or what zoning districts would the particular or specific uses be allowed in, and this is the revised map.
We matched all the marijuana type businesses, medical and marijuana, with our zoning at the last meeting. And then there were a few commissioners that wanted, even though it was a match for that zoning, they wanted it removed from it. So these are the representations of that discussion.
Several of the maps are turned out to be identical, but we did go through each individually.
Yeah.
And this also helps, to point out areas like the old Seiler model or the current Overton site, that seem to be small little islands versus, the other pieces that we have that seem to be located in maybe more appropriate areas.
Were parks taken into consideration? Because the reason why I'm asking is because, like you mentioned, the Overton and Seiler and the parks that are around there where our children, my grandchildren, play.
I think as we go through the maps, you'll see which ones are slotted for the certain areas.
Yeah, those were the buffering maps that we showed
Right.
at the beginning for the 200, 300, and 600 foot and 1,000 foot maps.
These are maps that just represent zoning. They don't represent
Right.
what's next door, where parks are, where schools are. It just represents zoning
So we,
districts.
at some point, can lay them together
Right.
and maybe get a better understanding.
The approach we're taking is, for marijuana business, we're just saying it's a business. Taking the marijuana out of it, and if where would this business go in our zoning? That's where we're at right now.
And I think the other distinction, Mr. Chairman, that these maps show, there's a clear distinction between the medical marijuana and the recreational marijuana in this as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I'm not sure if we can take the marijuana out.
I was going to say that.
Okay.
I don't see us taking the marijuana out. Marijuana is marijuana, and that's what we're working with
Well,
right now.
I agree to a point, but we're saying there's a transportation business. So that's trucking. Where would you put trucking in the city? That's where we're starting, and now we're going to start to narrow it down. And first, we have to look through these maps that are reflective of what happened last meeting.
Mm-hmm. They look good so far.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
So we're at 106, which is the medical marijuana. Is that reflective of what you guys desired from the last meeting?
Yes.
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 That's
Okay. Next, 107, medical marijuana processors.
I would say yes.
Yes, that's what we discussed.
Yes.
So there's so many of these, we just got to go through them one at a time. Safety labs, page 108.
I'm going to say yes, and if I may, Chairman, we did kind of talk that we may not have a lot of information on what a lab is that would do this kind of work.
Right.
I did have a chance to talk with Mr. Wall and ask him specifically, the type of lab that he is and testing and what they would do. He thought that the only appropriate areas would be similar to the processors and the growers in that because of the chemicals and the gases and how you need to control that type of business probably wouldn't be appropriate He couldn't see how you could have one of those like along the corridor along LaGrange Street in any particular building. He said, yes, you might be able to have an optical lab that does glasses at Walmart, and that's appropriate, but you couldn't have a testing lab that has the kind of chemicals that he has that need to be disposed of or create the kind of fumes and vapors in that kind of location. So this may be one where we want to relook at the areas that might be most appropriate. And he thought that anyone would do his type of business would locate in an industrial area as opposed to maybe some of the other areas that we thought of, like a B4 or a B2.
Okay. So we'll take that under advisement. Anybody else on that one? No? Page 109, medical marijuana secure transporters. That looks exactly like we discussed.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. 110, medical marijuana storefront retail. Looks like exactly what we discussed, correct?
Sir.
Okay. Page 111, marijuana overlay areas.
Can I back up just a minute?
To page
Storefront
110?
retail? Yes, please.
Storefront retail,
Did
okay,
we
go
not
ahead,
take
Larry.
B3 out of that?
What?
Did we not take B3 out of there?
I believe we did.
I don't think so. No.
I think there was discussion of it, but it was not decided to take the B3 out.
Right.
We still have a lot of cigarette boats in town that could be reconfigured.
To marijuana boats?
Mhm.
New name.
Okay, so we'll keep moving, all right?
Okay.
111, overlay. So Larry, I think you and I had both talked about these. You asked that staff put these maps together.
Yep.
So is everybody familiar what this is driving towards?
Mm-hmm. And then were these boundaries correct also then? The areas that are,
Well, my suggestion, excuse me, was Area 1. I hadn't thought much about Area 2. I think that was Clark.
Yeah, we did bring that up because that is an area on the other side of Blue Star that seems very appropriate.
To you.
To me.
We
Correct.
didn't vote on it.
Correct.
No, we didn't vote on it,
didn't.
but it's an option. So that looks like what we discussed,
does.
and we're seeing it for the first time, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's another option. Then we'll move to 112. This is where we get into recreational marijuana growers. And they're all pretty similar to the prior maps we looked at, but once again, we got to go through them one by one. So, any problems with that one?
Sir.
No? Okay, 113, recreational marijuana processors. Looks fine to me. Anybody else? Hearing nobody, I assume it's okay.
Looks good.
All right. Just give me a couple words of encouragement, and I can
Yes,
keep
sir.
moving.
Yes.
Go for it.
114, recreational marijuana safety compliance labs.
I think Clark's
is what
previous
we
comments
discussed.
are still appropriate here.
Clark's comments are appropriate for this one as well. We have to verify what the testing labs really
okay,
required.
but look closer at the B2 zoning as well.
Well, we don't know.
Okay.
We
We
need to
don't-
know what that business.
We don't know, this was strictly one individual who has this type of business, where typically with the type of solvents, effluents, and he said the gas collection equipment and where your neighbors are going to potentially do when you filter it, and how you then dispose the waste, and then storage of chemical and type of chemical that comes in. That was his opinion, but I think having, more staff to track that down would be appropriate.
Okay.
We don't want to unnecessarily rule anything out.
Gotcha.
tour.
And I believe, David, that the additional material you guys put together for us did identify a couple places where labs are in existence and gave us a pretty good look at what kind of neighborhoods they were in.
So there was one lab in the, and we can go through this presentation if that would be helpful, but the one lab that is featured in here actually is in a commercial area and has I believe a restaurant pretty
Right.
close. And it's in Kalamazoo and I think has been up and running, not licensed for several years, but I think has been up and running doing similar activities for several years. And then when the city did its ordinance, it kind of grandfathered it in, so to speak. So I don't know if it's any indication of the issues that they have or haven't had.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, let's move on to 115, recreational marijuana secure transporters. Once again, that one looks indicative of what we discussed earlier. And 116, recreational marijuana storefront retail. Looks correct, right?
Yes.
Trying to compare that with the medical. That's what we had in the medical as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the recreational had more. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the storefront and medical marijuana retail, there are some differences there. Just the
Slight.
PB1 is in the medical,
Right.
included in the medical.
Okay. Now, I guess we can go through the facility types or a abbreviated version of it.
Sure. I can go quickly. We can
Yeah.
clean up here.
So, AV man, keep going, page 117. There you go. Thank you.
So we can skip through the first couple of slides, just kind of the introduction. The key point to remember in all of this is that, one, just because something looks like something somewhere else doesn't mean it would necessarily look like it here. And the other is that it's kind of hard to find a lot of information about these facilities. Most were constructed within the last year, so some of this data gathering is a little bit speculative and going off of public records and that type of thing. So we only looked into the three types that this commission was specifically kind of having trouble visualizing, with the first being secure transporters. So we've got the regulations from the statute and from the law rules laid out here, so you can see what those are. Some of these I wasn't aware of before we did this presentation. So we have each vehicle operated by a two-person crew. Obviously, they can store and transport marijuana. One person must remain in the vehicle at all times. Vehicles are unmarked or can't, not necessarily unmarked, but can't have indicia of marijuana. And they can store marijuana, but as of right now, at least, can't store it for more than 48 hours. This is info not from regulations, but instead from just kind of looking at websites about these businesses. There's currently only 4 in the state. There's an identified statewide need for more of these. No locations particularly near South Haven at the moment. Company websites talk a lot about their vehicles being armored, about logistics experiences. It looks like the 2 to 10 employee range was pretty consistent in what I had seen. And then, again, the exterior of these facilities typically do not have indicia of marijuana. Here's just some pictures that we were able to find on some of the facilities. Here's one in the Southfield area. And again, with these pictures, we're not necessarily sure that it's up and running as a secure transporter when this picture is taken, but it gives you an idea of what the building looks like in the layout of the area. So pretty average size building. I believe this one was in a industrial. Actually, no, this one had residences very nearby and was in, I guess, what you'd call a commercial area. And then we've got the building dimensions here. We were able to find those. This one, interestingly, says satellite locations throughout the state. I'm not entirely certain what that means. The regulations don't really talk about how one would do that, but that was I found that interesting that it said that. And then you can see the various types of vehicles that this one has, at least in its images. That was a question that was asked. It does look like they're using a pretty large semi-trailer for some of their deliveries. Here's another one, pretty similar size building and layout. This one is a little bit more industrial area, but also, again, had houses and a church immediately across the street. And then you see a similar unmarked vehicle there. And this one was a suite within a larger industrial facility. The other one was a standalone. We're on to safety compliance facilities. Authorized to accept from facilities and test for contaminants and cannabinoids. Must have a secured laboratory space, cannot be accessed by the public, and must have at least one staff member with an advanced degree in medical or laboratory science. We found one example that we featured here. This is the spot from Kalamazoo, as was alluded to earlier. It is in a commercially zoned district. I think I said earlier it was near a restaurant. It actually appears it's not a restaurant, but there is a kind of strip mall looking commercial facility, as well as maybe an auto repair truck business. And it's in a relatively small, I think, commercial looking building. And there's only 3 of these in the state. The spot's the only one in the Southwest Michigan area. And then processors. Here, the regulations, they essentially process marijuana and turn it either into edible marijuana or into pharmaceutical type marijuana with ointments and oral tablets and things of that nature. One important thing to note is that not all marijuana in either the recreational or the medical scheme has to go through a processor. If you're just getting marijuana to smoke, it can skip that step, go from grower to safety compliance, straight to a retail outlet as opposed to going through a processor first. Currently 11 in the state. Again, some market themselves more as commercial bakeries. Some market themselves, I would say, more as pharmaceutical companies. You can kind of tell by their naming which category it's falling into. We've got some example names up there. And then the product range I kind of went over earlier. And then these are, I think we found them in both commercial, right. Here's a commercial area. We also found another one in an industrial area. Those seem to be the 2 types of zoning. Fairly large facilities. This is one that makes baked goods, 2,880 square foot facility, and was not co-located with other businesses. So some of these businesses types are, my understanding at least, is that they're co-located with a grower, and that's a popular model, but the ones that we looked at were not, did not fit that model. And then here's another one in Buchanan, which is kind of closer to Niles in Southwest Michigan. Again, it's a fairly industrial-looking building in a fairly remote industrial area. And this one was more focused on, I guess, pharmaceutical-type products. And that's it. Again, those are just examples. There were obviously a number of facilities not covered, but hopefully that gives some idea of what they look like.
Okay. Thank you. So now we've seen the updated maps, and what's our next step?
Can I ask a quick question, Mr. Chairman, on that? Did you have any sense of what's in the pipeline? I know it looks like it's pretty limited right now, but when you did your investigation, were you finding
so
a great deal of energy around it?
There's an additional reading article linked in the staff report that was the best summary I found of what's coming down the road. It was from Crane's Business Detroit, and I think it covered maybe 6 or 7 kind of conglomerate marijuana companies and what they have planned throughout the state. If you're interested in that, I'd take a look. It had some square footage, in terms of their plans, how many facilities they're planning, where they're planning. It was a lot of good information in a relatively short article. So.
The reason I ask, Nick, is I think it gives us some context, but we have to remember it's context at the very beginning of this new offering, if you will.
Right. And I think that article makes it pretty apparent that some fairly large corporations are about to scale up in a pretty big way.
So where are we headed next with this, now that we've looked at these maps?
Yeah, so it would be nice to get some guidance on what types of buffering, the size of buffering you think was appropriate, whether you would like to have buffering from all uses, or whether you think it's appropriate only for certain types of uses.
Okay.
Maybe a discussion facility by facility of which buffers are appropriate would be helpful.
Okay. I think prior to us talking about that, I think I'll invite the audience to speak on what we looked at so far, if anybody has any comments. So at this time, if anybody'd like to speak, I know, Alan, we have a letter from you in our packet. I don't know if you want to speak any more to that particular item. But anybody else, you please come up, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Alan Silverman. I live at 144 Dunkley here in South Haven. I have written to you and given you my thoughts. I'm not going to repeat what's in there, and I'd appreciate you're taking a look at my memo. Someone once said the devil's in the details, and that's especially true here. If we could go back to your diagram on page 103.
Sure.
If you So we look at a buffer zone, and it identifies a number of types of facilities around which the buffer zone is drawn. I'd suggest to you that it's very important, just as important to pick a number as it is to pick a definition of each of those facilities, because everyone's view of what a, quote, school facility is different. And wherever I have found ordinances that have addressed schools, in almost all cases they have defined them really as full-time facilities, school facilities. Wherever they have discussed religious institutions, they have identified them as recognized churches or houses of worship. So there are specific definitions in existing ordinances that you may want to look at. The same thing is true for parks and beaches, for example. Most places that have a buffer zone that involve parks restrict it to parks that have play facilities. A good example is our park, as you know, Black River Park. That's a place to launch your boat, to clean your fish at soon to be an upgraded station. It has no children's play facilities, and under most ordinances that I've read would not be included in the buffer zone. And then I think it's already been mentioned that one of the issues that always comes up is how do you measure it? Most of the ordinances that I've read have reverted to the measurement system that was established by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, because it's a clear-cut definition of how you measure. And for those of you that may not be familiar with it, it essentially takes the two facilities and takes the point on each facility that is closest to the other facility and a straight line down to the closest roadway, so that it is a 90-degree intersection with that roadway, and it measures then along that roadway. That way, if you have a property that is 2 acres and the building is on the extreme east side of the property, another one where the building's on the extreme west side of the property, it wouldn't be fair to measure property line to property line, because those don't have anything to do with the facilities. The only other interesting thing to me that I'd point out when I saw the slides that you put together was if you look at those and you forgot that our discussion was about medical marijuana, you couldn't identify any of those facilities from the exterior as having anything to do with marijuana. And because the grow facility is simply an indoor agricultural plant, as is the processing, and so on down the line. If you've had the chance to go to a number of even the retail facilities, most of them you cannot recognize as having anything to do with marijuana. There's soon to be a new facility open in Bangor, and I'll let you know as soon as it's going to be open. I stopped by today just to see what the construction looks like, and it's going to look like a high-end retail store. So thank you for letting me make my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? How many people do want to speak? 1, 2, 3. Anybody else? All right, just so I can have an idea.
Jan Hageland, 811 Congress Street. To me, the issue isn't about whether or not they look nice or whether they don't look nice. The issue is a societal issue. And I think we have to look at it from the side of, is it good for our town? Is it good for our children? Is it good for our college? And we have said that we're very concerned about the health and safety of our community, and it's in our ordinance. And I think that that's a broader issue that needs to be looked at. And maybe it's not your place to do it, but I do think that you have to take that into consideration, that this could change our town very much for the future and for the future of our young people that are growing up. It's well documented, and I sent you a link, and I hope you were able to go to that site and that you were able to look at the things on the site, because we have to do what's right. We have to not think about money, because the money never comes. According to Colorado and all the other states, the social costs are huge, way outweigh the costs of what the marijuana industry has said. And that is also very well documented. And it is a serious problem, and it's a growing problem. And I thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Sean Russell, 70412 County Road 388. Thank you for your time, first of all. I know this is not an easy subject, as evidenced by the 2+ years that we've been talking about it. So I just looked over real quick the Planning Commission recommendation that was done in April of 2017, I believe it was. And it was just interesting. It evidenced something that I think is important for us to look at. When we talk about these, some of these buffers, that's really my concern right now. And what I would offer is something to look at a little more in depth, is the buffers that we're talking about at this point seem to, we're kind of putting them all in one bucket for each of the facilities. And the reason that concerns me is I think if you look at those facilities, whether it's a grow compared to a transport or a processor compared to a safety compliance, each one of those, when you talk about buffers from these different types of institutions, childcare, schools, that type of thing, I think maybe would require a little more in-depth look at what kind of distances we really need for these facilities. When they looked at this in 2017, it might have been 16, sorry, but I think it was 17, there was actually no buffers required for the grow, the processing, and the safety compliance facilities. And I think, Mr. Gruber, you were on that planning commission at the time and specifically looked at that because they said, well, do we really need a buffer for a facility that's like it's an industry? It's a closed door, as you saw by, again, some of the facilities, very indescript, something that, has jobs just like any other industry that we used to have in town. But they did have the setbacks, and I think you recommended 600 feet for the transportation and provisioning centers. Provisioning centers kind of make sense to me. I mean, it seems like that's what gets talked about the most at this point, and what we're trying to avoid kids and certain folks getting in contact with. but I don't think necessarily children walking down a sidewalk next to an industrial building, nobody knows what goes on behind that building. If it's car parts or if it's medical marijuana, I don't think there's any setbacks for Albemarle, and I think, they produce some pretty good stuff back there too. That's just part of what they do as an industry. So that's my only recommendation, is that we just look at that a little closer and maybe think about spending a little bit of extra time. I know I don't want to slow it down any more than any of you, but separating out those facilities to just look at potentially that they might have different requirements. So I'm sure I'll be back, but thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next. Is there anybody else after this gentleman? Okay.
So, my name's Chris Gordon. I'm 113 Quill Street in Battle Creek, Michigan. I'm in the real estate aspect of this. So I look at this all the time. I hear everything about buffers and associated setbacks and so forth. I will say that everything he pretty much said is 100% accurate in allowing an industry to grow the right way. And as far as the buffers go as right now, I would honestly say you guys are, in this map, a little bit lax, in my opinion, from what I've seen all across the board. So I like this map. I'm just putting it out there. And more of the story when you go to the second map, and with provisioning centers, at least, you even limit it more. So, where he's getting at with the 600-foot buffer, that becomes even more an issue because 90% of these guys are looking for provisioning centers now. They're not looking for transports and so much cultivation and processing because they got them where the other towns open up. So they got them in Bangor, Reedsville, those areas. And, just like I said, the first map is decent, and that's all I have to say. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. There's a few ways we could go about this. One is with our new board, we could list all the businesses, put all the distancing, do a grid, and kind of vote on where you think certain businesses could be. But my alternative would be for us to say to staff, give us a recommendation on the distancing for each type of business. But I could do it either way. I don't know how strongly you guys feel about distancing. I think you know what I think based off of the short-term rental discussions when it comes to distancing. But I'm open. Somebody can pick the torch up here if you want to get into distancing on each individual marijuana type of business.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I'd call it distancing, but I do like your idea of deferring to the staff for a couple reasons. There's a halo effect when you say marijuana, that everybody assumes it's however their lens wants to see what that word means. I see it as, I'm certainly not advocating the use of marijuana, but I do see it as an industry that's going to happen in the state of Michigan. It's legal. There are going to be processors. So to me, that's separate even from the retail discussion. I would hate to see us just outright rule it out when we talk about being concerned about economic development. And again, I know it's not about the money all the time, but I love the idea in the research I did that most of the jobs I found in processing centers, most of the jobs I found in growers, started at about $15 an hour. That's not bad money for around here. We can put a lot of money into trying to build tourism, but those are usually pretty low-paying seasonal jobs. So we have an opportunity to take a look at, if there's a safe way to do it and a reasonable way to do it, to invite a business into our community that's going to be somewhere, even if it's only 8 miles to Bangor. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I think the issue is so big, if we try to do it one by one on the board, I'd like to spend my summer doing something more than marijuana. So I think what Nick and David and staff has done so far to guide us has been absolutely wonderful, and I'd lean on them a little bit.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate everything that was put together. Ever since, I think, '96 when I ran, and Mr. Silverman was the moderator, he's always scared me a little bit. And he had a really good point, and that is sometimes we have to look at differences in some of the buffer zones. If that's a route we go, when you look at a retail establishment versus an industrial, and I've been by some industrials, and some of them I can't tell. I've never been by a retail that I didn't know what it was, and I think one presents much closer to the community, the actual end product, while the other one, trucks come and trucks go, and you just can't tell even when you're cruising down the expressway in Colorado. Having staff put all this together, it looks great. I'm still a big proponent of, of an overlay. I think that was kind of a masterful stroke, just because personally I'm okay with the manufacturer and the processing and the testing. It's just the retail on both ends I'm just not a fan of, and that's just my personal choice. But I like the overlay, and I like the differences in the buffering depending on the type of business. But considering all this great work, if staff wanted to come back one more then, and that is marrying the two of them together for us to look at, I think that would be great, because that would really give us something to look at, to go where they could be and where they couldn't. So like I said, these look great, now putting them together. And I'm glad they didn't put them both together at the same time, because it probably would have been a little more confusing for us to figure out. So I think having staff do that one next step, now that we've seen this, is a great suggestion.
May I ask a dumb question here? What's the buffer for sale of alcohol?
I think 500.
500.
Is that right? I'm not real sure what the state,
The state
requires
dictates that?
for those.
The state has, I think it's 500 feet for a liquor license, 500 feet from schools and churches, and those are both waivable by the institution, and there's a whole process for how that happens.
Thank you.
As City of South Haven city planner, zoning administrator, there's ideas I do have. I'd like to be involved in discussions, moving forward with putting language together. We talk a lot about the buffering, distancing. I like to see more of the physical barriers, not the obstructions, but screening, physical buffering, things of that nature around properties to it helps separate, but it also helps aesthetically. Those are things that a lot of communities work with industrial next to lighter commercial, or separating residential from lighter commercial, things of that nature. Those might be some areas to look at with specifically honing in on these particular uses.
I know they're different, but would you consider alcohol and marijuana parallel type businesses? And the reason I say that is because you bring up the alcohol, and would it be desirable to copy or imitate those distancing? Is that what you were referring to?
I suppose, Mr. Chairman. If we could get in a time machine and go back to the end of Prohibition, listen to the discussion there, I doubt that it's very different than what we're talking about right now. We're at the very beginning of something that the people in the state of Michigan has decided is going to be legal. And there's a lot of people that don't like that decision. However, there was a lot of people that didn't like the establishment of the selling of alcohol past Prohibition. So, this time period is going to be difficult to get through. So yes, my point is exactly that. If we have buffers from alcohol sales because we're concerned about the welfare of the communities, I think that's a pretty good model for another legal product.
I also think it's better to keep it similar to what we already have on the books. That way it's easy to follow. If we have 11 new businesses with 11 new types of distancing, it needs to fall into something we've already been doing.
I agree, and I
Yeah.
also think we should treat the medical marijuana like we treat pharmaceuticals, and we should treat recreational like we treat liquor. I mean, it's already, like, why reinvent the wheel? It's already there, and it is a new beginning. Just as Mike said, you know, people are nervous and scared about what's going to happen, and it's probably way worse than it. They think it's way worse than it actually will be, but those things are already in place, so that's kind of where I'm leaning. And I do like the idea of treating each business separately. If we do choose to create something new, I do think that makes sense.
Any other thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like for the next conversation that we have on the buffering for those parks, schools, whatever, to be defined. I'm sure that we already have them defined somewhere. This isn't a wheel that we are reinventing, but define what those are. Are they full-time? Whatever they are. We defined a park, we define a religious organization, we define a school. I agree that we could steal a lot from Liquor Control Commission on regulation and probably at least
We don't
start.
steal, we borrow.
We borrow.
Best practices.
We borrow from some of those regulations that we already have as far as the buffers go. But I believe each of these businesses are completely different. So in our discussion, we discuss one right after the other. And I propose that we take either one at a time or two at a time and try, because this is, I mean, it may just be me being simple-minded at times, but it's hard for me to get through from one business to another. If we could just sit down and talk about growing, and we have some state regulations that I understand already exist when we're talking about licensing for growers and things like that, that's going to regulate what we can do and where we can put them. And I think that we would move along faster if we could take off one bite at a time here. And then send that piece to council. Say here, this is what we think about growers. This is what we think about, and I don't think we have to have it all completely done to send it to them. Maybe we do. That's up to you, Mr. Chairman. The letter that Mr. Silverman wrote is very important. I hope you've all read it. It has some very, very good information in it. There are a couple of websites that were sent to us from some other folks that were also very good. But as far as the legalities and some of the things that we are being asked to do, I think that letter helped me as much as anything else. And I hope that you will come back and help us at times if we need it. So that's it.
Okay.
I agree, Amanda. The other separation I think we need to keep in mind, and again, Mr. Silverman's letter was very helpful in this, there are different statutes for retail and medical.
Right.
Let's not mix them up.
I agree. And is our job to deal with the medical? I thought our job was to deal with the recreational.
Both.
But it's both. Okay.
Sure, Alan. As many times as your memo was referenced, I think I'd have to let you come up.
Thank you. One thing to keep in mind is that there is no more regulated an industry in this state than medical marijuana except for recreational marijuana. So every regulation that applies to medical marijuana applies to recreational, plus additional regulations for recreational. So the state has really done a lot of your work. Without that background, you'd really have a lot to do. the state regulations are extraordinary.
And speaking of state regulations, David, Nick, is it a requirement to have any buffering of a certain distance?
So the medical statute has no buffering at all built into the statute. By giving municipalities the authority to zone, presumably allows you to, and most communities have been doing it through their own zoning ordinances. The recreational has a default 1,000-foot buffer from all facilities to K through 12 schools, so not to parks, not to churches. But that is waivable and or modifiable by the municipality. It's just if the ordinance doesn't provide otherwise, that's the rule. If the ordinance can say anything it wants to modify that for recreational.
Okay. So that already puts something on the table, right? So unless anybody feels real strongly about going through these, what I'd suggest is we indicate to staff to, by business type, with the recreational and medical, to recommend a buffering, and I can work with them a little bit on that to make sure we put it together so it's easy to understand when we look at it again. Does that sound all right?
It does. The one open question is, what do we do with the overlay?
Well, I think we leave that there for now. Okay. All right, because we're not only looking at each business type, we're also looking at different ways of zoning these businesses. Correct. Or letting them into certain zoning areas that are already established, so.
And we could probably have staff make a separate map showing whatever the recommended buffers are within the overlay. One thing about the overlay is that there's much less of an issue with these three types of uses. It looked to me like there were two, I don't want to call them facilities, but I think there's a church and a school that would cut into the buffer a little bit, but those areas are mostly free of these uses you're trying to buffer from.
Yeah, my concern, and it was explained well to me, my concern is that we don't lose the overlay in the process of looking at buffers.
And I think we should clarify again that the overlay allows all business types. None were singled out, correct?
Residential was.
What?
Residential.
Residential.
Yes.
Yes.
Residential is single family.
Residential was
Oh, we
not
don't have any
included.
residential in the
We
overlay.
do.
It was along
That's
the
right.
start area.
What I'm saying are business types in the the outlined overlay area, all of them are allowed.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Now that you've clarified business types,
You're
yes.
saying those two zones, everything is allowed only in those.
Yeah, all 11 business types. Okay, is that enough to go on before we meet again?
Yeah, specifically like on parks, if you're looking at a park.
Okay.
And if we're not including all the parks, so let's say I'm looking at Black River Park. If there's no swing sets or slides or like children's playing equipment, I'm not really including that park. Does that make sense? Or because it's a family-oriented park, how do we differentiate
I
from
would
that?
say, personally, I would say no. We treat them all the same because
Okay.
just because it doesn't have a swing set now doesn't mean the Parks Commission doesn't buy one next week and put it there.
Okay, so include all parks is what you're saying.
I think so, for simplicity's sake.
Colleges. So
How
if
many
it's
do
K
we
through
have?
12, like the state describes or defines, do we keep that or do we include Lake Michigan College?
Well, but Lake Michigan College, you got childcare.
Okay.
And
So,
a high
and I
school.
believe that's in the overlay district.
And a high school, which is
Right.
9 through 12.
Right. So, yeah, that would be common sense to me as you include that in the buffer.
I think there's got to be some room for common
Child
sense
care
in here
facilities, yeah.
by looking at what's the intent of the buffer. The intent of the buffer is to protect the youth. I mean, I'd hate to just have categories because they're easy to have that go beyond the intent of the buffers.
And again, that's without a barrier. That's why I go to the physical buffering and screening. Because if you have a 500-foot buffer, I'm right here, I can see your facility right there, But if there's a screening or a physical barrier of some sort that separates a property, I think that's language to really identify and get specific on with separating some of these properties in addition to your distance buffering.
Well,
I agree.
guess that begs the question, if you have a physical barrier around the building, do you need the buffer?
Well, it depends on what the physical barrier is. Is it a chain link fence, or is it a privacy fence, or
hardscape.
is it a hedge?
No.
So
Be fencing.
it's just the same language we have in the ordinance already with the screens an industrial property from a residential property. It's described and defined.
Yeah.
I just think it should be something where you have and establish those specific requirements.
We're going to build a wall.
Don't go there.
The guy on the other side is going to pay for it.
That's right. That's about all I have to say on it. Anybody else? No? Nick, anything?
No, we can work on this before the next meeting. The next topic up is kind of facility-specific regulations, odor, that type of thing. Depending on how sizable the packet comes, we may or may not come with that at the next meeting, or may, as was suggested, come with it for maybe 1 or 2 facilities as opposed to all 5. Don't want to get your packet oversized. We'll see what we can do.
We had 140.
Yeah, we have one item besides this that's going to be on next planning committee. We had Bronson Hospital be submitted for preliminary site plan review. So that'd be the only other item besides the marijuana discussion.
And I know we're under a time constraint, so we can't waste too many meetings. So, we've got to be moving right down the tracks here.
So, some of these will be easier for facility regulations than others. Maybe we could do safety compliance or something as a kind of an add-on item, and leave growers and provisioning centers, I imagine, are the ones that will take a good deal of time.
And probably one question you can ask water, sewer, electric, BPU is, these type of facilities, I don't know their power needs or water needs. Do we have the correct capacity? Because I wouldn't want us to say, yeah, go ahead and have that type of business there, and we can't support it. All right. Good enough? Let's move on to the next item, which is Dave's going to give us his summary. Mic on?
Yep, it is now. Which is required through the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act, where the Planning Commission prepares an annual report, presents to City Council. So last year, I wanted to give a rundown of what we looked at per special land use, site plan review, any rezoning requests. The report also includes what the Zoning Board of Appeals had looked at. And not in this report yet, but I will include it, which is not a requirement for this report, is Construction Board of Appeals, what they looked at. I think we had a couple hearings last year where we looked at some dangerous buildings and actually had a couple demolitions. So last year, or 2018, Planning Commission heard 5 petitions for special land use permits. We looked at 8 site plan reviews. And we had 1 rezoning request. On the table, second page, third page, fourth page, gives a rundown of what the Planning Commission action was and what those specific agenda items were. You'll notice that I don't have the project or permit numbers on those, but those would be filled in. I need to cross-reference with the meeting minutes and everything before it goes to City Council, but I wanted to give an update and let you folks take a look at what our agendas looked like, what we looked at. If you notice, short-term rental, zoning ordinance, text amendments, a lot of discussions on that, obviously, last year, if you remember. So This is just for informational purposes. If you notice here, these are ZBA activity. ZBA met 7 times, heard 8 appeals this year and then for comparison purposes, offered that in 2017 they heard 12 appeals and 2 interpretations for zoning or a decision. Last year was pretty busy compared to the year previously. I see this year being just as busy, or if not busier. This agenda is evident of that. I think there's a lot of items on this agenda. We have some big projects coming down the pipe. And I think this is good information to share, and we'll get that.
You've been busy.
Been very busy, yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Anybody have any comments? Good job. All right. Next up, now, this was kind of unusual. I had the old business put after the new business, right? But that's because well, I'll let David tell you. So next up is item 12, 1073 Wells Street.
Yeah, applicant David Nixon had requested an amendment to the campground ordinance and in terms of staying at a campground specifically for his property at the referenced address. The day of or a day prior to last planning commission meeting, he withdrew or wanted to postpone or table this being looked at by the planning commission. He has since withdrawn or postponed it. He'll reapply at a later date if he pursues this any further. I haven't been able to get a hold of Mr. Nixon, but I'm going to get written documentation stating that. So he verbally told me over the phone.
So, being he told you verbally, we need it in writing?
I want it in writing to have
Okay.
it documented. It's just communication, trying to get a hold of him.
So what I'm at,
not the easiest.
we made a motion to postpone this item at the last meeting, and that's why it's carried over to this meeting. So I guess what I'm asking you is, do we motion to postpone this item again, or do we motion to remove it from the agenda?
I think it's safe to remove it from the agenda.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to remove the zoning ordinance request for 1073 Wells Street, Dave Nixon.
Okay.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. All right, next up, commissioner comments. Amanda.
Put me on the spot. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for letters to help us try to get through this, and for websites giving us information that helps tremendously. I love what they're doing in the museum, Maritime Museum. I didn't quite say that while they were here, but they're gone, so maybe if anybody sees the folks, you can let them know that we appreciate what they're doing, and it's beautiful. I think that's it.
Okay. Velma?
No comment.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about the Michigan Maritime Museum while they were here. I can't wait for my wife to see this. She's used to be working there. This looks very exciting for them, and good luck on their big project. And the visuals that you guys put together tonight were really helpful to kind of solidify what we were thinking in our head. Thank you.
No comment.
Yes, I also want to thank staff and the rest for providing that information that starting to make sense to all of us. So thanks for breaking it down like you do. And Kate, that was a great report you had on the fish cleaning station. There wasn't one thing missing from that. That was pretty awesome. Thanks.
Just my thanks as well.
Okay. David, anything else? No? Okay. Now I'll thank Jared. Jared does a great job getting the items up on the screen for us. Without that, this would become even more complicated. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn.
Been moved to adjourn and supported. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
See ya.